Power. Very good morning to you, sir, and welcome.
Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity, Elvis.
Now, first and foremost, tell us, when did you exactly started rolling out the load limiting device?
It's been long coming. We started about 3 years ago, where we made a decision that as a utility we'll implement or roll out smart meters. And we knew exactly that smart meters had a couple of sort of like functionality that will enable us to be able to better manage the supply to our customers. So it started a long time ago.
So what's the main purpose of the device, and why it's so important for you as City Power?
I think it comes at the right time where we're faced with a challenge of security of supply. I just received the warning before I came here that we might be load shedding today, for instance. So therefore it comes very handy where we're now giving a power to the customer to be able to decide whether they want to be load shed or they want to be able to have a load limited, so that they can then have a limited power, I think, within the house during the load shedding period.
Now, you've asked consumers not to panic, but what does this do? Does it switch off your entire household, or how does it work, actually?
I mean, why we're asking our consumers not to panic, it's because of what they will experience at the household level. What will happen is that your lights will start, switching off. They will go off for about 30 seconds, and then they will then come on again after 30 seconds, stay on for another 30 seconds, and then come off again. If you see that happening at home, then you know that you now entered a load limiting stage. What you then need to do, I think what is very important, is that as now the household, you need to then be able to make sure that you start reducing some of the loads by switching off some of the appliances, like your underfloor heating, your geysers, for instance, pool pumps, etc., so that you reduce the load to at least an acceptable limit that will enable us not to be load shed.
So when would this happen to you as a household?
Currently, we've started with a large-scale rollout of the load limiting. We started about a week ago, actually last week, Tuesday. We first identified about 9,000 households. So where it started, we're ramping up. This week, we'll be getting to about 30,000. And what we saw last week as just some of the feedback is that customers are complying. The majority of them are complying because we can be able to see the report after the load limiting. And we do this thing between 7 and 11 at night because that's where we're experiencing the peak. And this week, we anticipate that we'll actually load limit about 128 megawatts, which is actually a good achievement in terms of mitigating against load shedding.
I'm going to ask you about this limiting, but there's a device behind you there that I'm seeing. Explain to us what is happening there. Is that the device that we're talking about?
Yeah, certainly. What you see there, it's basically a model that we've come up with just to better educate our customers. We actually have the lights that are on, as you can see. It actually emulates that the lights will be on in the house, and also you see there's a meter there where it indicates the smart meter that is installed at the household level. And basically what will happen as part of this demo is that my engineers will send a signal from the back office point of view to that particular meter, basically telling the meter that please start load limiting. So what we expect is that the lights will then start going off, and then I can be able to demonstrate that to you.
Please demonstrate that for us so we can see exactly what you're talking about.
Thanks. Obviously, this is the the meter. I want to ask the team sitting outside to be able to send now the signal. I'm putting my stove on. As you can see, those lights obviously indicate the stoves that are on. And what is important is that there's now an instruction sent to the meter. And we can probably just wait for a few minutes. What will then start happening is that the lights will start going off. And then I'll then, as a citizen that is responsible, start reducing some of the load, and hopefully I'll then not be load shed, but actually stay through the load limiting.
So as soon as that happened, the first thing that you need to do is what? Switch off all your big appliances, so all your geysers,
Certainly.
all your pool pumps,
That's
right?
why I put the stove on, because as soon as they send the instruction to the meter is going to say, I'm actually over the limit. So for me to be able to be within the limit, as you can see, started going off, and I'm going to wait for it. So it's going to be 30 seconds, then it will then come on, for instance, after that 30-second period. And then once that has happened, then I'm then able to be able to switch off, the stove, and then once I've done that, then I should then be able to stay on as a customer.
So in essence, what you are trying to do is to reduce the load on the grid itself.
I think the impact that we want to see is that right at the ESCOM level, they should then be able to see the load reducing to a level where it's acceptable for them to be able to manage the supply. And I think that's basically what we're trying to do.
Now, this load limiting, isn't there a danger perhaps when we talk about appliances, because what will be the impact of these power interruptions to household appliances that could potentially be damaged?
Certainly, you see, normally when you introduce a fault, meaning that there's something wrong with the electricity at home, you normally experience the spikes. So it meaning that there will be a rise in the current or voltage. So in this particular case, we're actually not doing that. What we're doing is that we're just switching off, as you'll normally come in and switch off and switch on. So therefore, we're not introducing any fault. We don't expect to have any sort of like spikes within the house that will damage your equipment. I mean, of course, that needs to be managed within the reason. That's why we've got only 5 iterations, not iterations that will then start damaging some of your equipment.
But are you ready for any claims to that effect that consumers would be able to lodge if they say that my fridge went off and my television doesn't work anymore?
I mean, certainly there's a process that needs to be followed. So in case where there are really genuine damages and as a result of negligence that can be proven, we're obviously able to entertain that. We're actually able to do it now as an organization, for instance. So therefore, there's nothing that will stop us from doing that if obviously the system does that. But we're confident that it shouldn't get to that particular point.
You started off with 9,000 households. You're moving to 128 megawatts that you want to cut. How many households was that altogether?
That goes to 30,000. Actually, we're overachieving in that sense. We had anticipated that we'll actually have about 775 megawatts curtailed over 330,000 customers. But based on the sample that we've taken and the gradual increase in terms of the rollout, what we're picking up that we're actually overachieving. So we're getting more megawatts for less meters, meaning that there's high usage out there.
But did you communicate this to the residents? Because we had some complaints that people are saying, we never knew about this. All of a sudden, my lights is going off.
We had a big launch in the south of Joburg. If you remember, I think Aspen Hills, where the executive mayor, himself was there, trying to make sure that there's a proper awareness and we kick off that particular process. So that's basically what happened. However, communication and education can never be enough. So I think there's still a challenge, and we have to close that particular gap, make sure that we continue to educate, and make sure that we continue to educate our customers and communicate. So I cannot really, sort of like downplay that. It's something that we need to do, and I think we're geared up to be able to do that.
How are the households receiving the new devices, and have you received any complaints as yet, or is it too early to tell?
No, certainly we have received complaints. I mean, we're getting customers calling. Obviously, the lights started, going on and off, and then they're concerned about that. So you get some of those complaints. So therefore, we need to be able to engage with those customers and be able to tell them what's happening. But other complaints are like that, I've reduced everything, but I still get, obviously, load shed. So you find that load limited. We find that some of the customers, their usage is obviously very high. So therefore, with the reduction that we're pushing through the meters, they're able to reduce. But others, their consumption is very low. So therefore, we need to be mindful of that fact that others, you can't suck water out of the stone. So therefore, we're now categorizing our customers. We're saying these are the high-end users, and these are obviously ones that are in the low category. Therefore, we're applying different limits so to allow everyone to have a limited power within the house. So those are some of the complaints, and also the call center obviously not being geared up to handle some of the things, and we're now addressing at least some of those complaints.
Finally, Mr. Xulu, your advice to consumers out there and residents of Johannesburg, what should they do to limit their power usage?
I think the merit of interventions. I think firstly, we want them to be able to cooperate in terms of the load limiting. I think that's the first thing. And although there will be issues, but we're willing to work together and resolving some of those issues with them. So let them get the smart meter, make sure that they participate in the process. But over and above that, I think they need to start changing the behavior. Shift your cooking to gas, your space heating to gas, making sure that you participate in solar, roof PV, tops, for instance. So you need to change our behavior towards how we actually utilize our electricity at home.
Mr. Xulu, thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.